Hey guys, it's Mark and I'm the part-time British guy. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're one of my returning subscribers, welcome back. And of course, thank you very much to my Patreon members. So, it's Halloween, October. So I gotta do a paranormal video. I just was wondering, it's like, well, there are castles in England and a lot of different ghost stories that I could use, and I needed something different. I needed something different for Halloween. No little kitten. I got my kitten over here. Kitten alert. Shall we tell them about the Queen Mary? Octavia? Of course, this is Octavia. Gonna put her down because she's still a kitten. Alright. Obviously I gave away the title, Queen Mary. Now, it's rather interesting because she's referred to as the most haunted ship. And there goes my stomach. The ship was retired in 1967 and is berthed in, I know it's California. I think it's Long Beach, California. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to check my notes. But I'll leave a little text thingy as to where she actually is berthed and stuff like that. But just let's go over some of the interesting things about the Queen Mary, and then we'll go over a little bit about the history. One of the most infamous things about the Queen Mary is stateroom B 340, I believe. Yeah, 340. And one woman said that she was awoken when the bed covers were just violently ripped off her. And when she opened her eyes, there was this dark figure looming over her at the end of the bed. I believe it was the 1960s, throughout the 70s, the water would go on, the lights would flicker on and off, and it received so many bad reviews. That particular room received so many bad reviews, and people had so many issues that it was closed for 30 years. And it was only reopened because of the ship's very infamous haunting exchanges. And trust me, getting a key to stateroom B340 comes with a fierce warning. I think that's my kitten. If you hear any background noise, that's the kitten. That's Octavia. So it is very much a haunting attraction, but the problem is nobody knows for sure just what happened. There are rumors, of course. And I mean, everything from somebody who had murdered two people and was locked in that particular stateroom, awaiting like the police and stuff like that, and the guy screamed to the guard outside that there was something in the room with him. Unfortunately, according to this particular rumor, when they opened the door later that morning, his mangled body was found lying dead at the door, trying to get out. Is it true? We don't know. Now, have people died on the Queen Mary? Yes. But the weird thing is, the pool. Nobody died at the pool. Yet there are the happy sounds of a small child that emanate from the pool. When people were giving tours before they closed the room off, because obviously the pool had been emptied, alright, so nobody would have any accidents or anything like that. Witnesses reported the wet footprints of somebody getting out of the pool, walking around and heading towards the changing area. Other people said that the pool was a vortex, as it were, and a weak spot in the fabric of space-time that allowed the spirits from the other side to enter. I don't know how much I believe about that, but I'm not about to discard it. So we talked about the swimming pool. We didn't talk about the boiler room. Boiler room number 4 is apparently haunted. There's a doorway. They used to have watertight doors. All luxury liners had watertight doors, even the Titanic. But John, and believe his last name was pronounced Peter. No, it's Peter, Peddar. And the young man was tragically killed in the 1960s. And it's kind of an odd thing because when these watertight doors close, they don't just close. There's an alarm that blares and the door closes, and some people kind of theorize that what happened with the young man was he was trying to play chicken with the door. If he could just jump through at the last second, and unfortunately he did, and it didn't cut him in half at the midsection. It kind of cut him straight across, but it's a watertight door, so there was like nothing left of his insides. He was dead. Tragically, it's said that John never left. That some people see a man in blue coveralls, or somebody will turn around and come up to them and say, "Excuse me, have you seen my wrench?" And when they turn around, there's nobody there. So some people think that John is just playing games, or somehow he's looking for his wrench. A YouTuber, and I'll list his channel name, went onto the team. Let me try this again. A teenager, and I'll leave his YouTube channel name on the description here, went on to the Queen Mary when he was 17. And it took him 10 years to go back. And his YouTube channel is about the paranormal. So, oddly, he goes into a stateroom and he feels as if somebody is poking him in the face. Just constantly poking him. He is so scared, so petrified, that he can't open his eyes. And when he finally does get to open his eyes, he looks to see where his friend is, and his friend is sound asleep in the next bed. So whatever was poking him is very real. Let's go over some of the history, shall we? Alright, Queen Mary. May 27th, 1936, Queen Mary is launched, and she's launched from Southampton, England. And she's a luxury liner. 1936. World War II hasn't hit yet. She's doing what all luxury liners do, ferrying the rich and famous to and from America. Then, of course, World War II happens. And the British military realized that the Queen Mary is fast, and faster than German U-boats could get her. So they decide to use her as a transport vehicle. She goes from being a passenger liner to being stripped of her amenities. The portholes are welded shut, they're blackened out, all the pictures are taken, the fancy furniture is removed, and literally 15,000 soldiers are crammed onto the Queen Mary that had an accommodation normally for 2,200 passengers. It was said to be stifling hot on the Queen Mary, and during World War II, Adolf Hitler himself offered a $250,000 reward to any U-boat captain that could sink the Queen Mary. Now, of course, they painted her gray. She was known as the Great Ghost. And that was because she could outrun any U-boat there was, and it was just that hard to catch her. But the Great Ghost was not without her problems. During convoy duty, in I think it was October 1942, what the convoys used to do is they would do a zigzag kind of formation. That way you could throw off German U-boats. You don't want to go in a straight line because the U-boats could transmit your location. So, while escorting the Queen Mary off the coast of Ireland, HMS, I'm going to butcher the name, so I'm just going to print it down here. She's a small cruiser. For whatever reason, I don't know how it happened, where the miscommunication was, But that cruiser, that light cruiser, was struck and hit by the Queen Mary. All 82,000 tons of her, cleaving the cruiser in half. Now it's the war. It's 1942. You can't afford to stop. Some 329 sailors perished. Either they were crushed, hit by the Mary, or frozen in the icy waters. By the time rescuers came, they only were able to save 100 or so. I'm not sure of the exact number. But the Queen Mary does have rather infamous history. I have to stress that you got to remember that the Queen Mary had all those sailors, all those soldiers on her. You can't just stop. It's wartime. It's not like the captain was being mean or facetious. You literally could not stop. It was not a good idea. Were there deaths aboard the Queen Mary? Yeah. And it's reported that there say, and I don't know how they come up with the number, that over 100 spirits are still aboard the Queen Mary. Okay, so it is claimed that at least 47 people have died on the Queen Mary during her time at sea. We talked about the young crew member who in the 1960s was playing chicken with the bulkhead door, but they also said that hundreds of soldiers or sailors had died having either jumped off or was just so stifling hot they couldn't bear it. And you can understand when you weld off those little portholes, there's no real good airflow. So, and it's a situation too, 15,000 soldiers. You're below decks, that's not a comfortable environment. It's basically said that during the summer, the soldiers would sleep shoulder to shoulder above the deck and took turns sleeping in the bunks below deck. The lack of airflow made the cabins suffocatingly hot. Some soldiers died of heat exhaustion. Others jumped ship. The Mary was no longer a luxurious cruise ship, it was hell. You have to understand that in her time, the Queen Mary offered the most lavish of amenities. Exquisite dining rooms, swimming pools, daily radio broadcasts, a kennel for passengers' dogs, a children's nursery, even a hospital. And the interesting thing is that one of the reasons people go to visit the Queen Mary now is the ghost tours. You can rent a room, you can go there, and you just might see somebody wearing 1960s style clothes. As one particular passenger noted, the interesting thing was that it wasn't until the person noticed that she wasn't making any noise, she wasn't floating or anything, she looked literally like somebody who was wearing 1960s clothes. That's how out of date and how odd she looked. And it wasn't until he realized this woman's not making any noise when she walks. And when he turned around, she was gone. There are other times that people will be walking and you hear somebody in high heels walking on the linoleum floor. That's what the Queen Mary used in her day. The linoleum floor that's been replaced with carpeting. There is no linoleum on the Queen Mary anymore. So when you hear that somebody walking on high heels on linoleum, my guess, there's going to be nobody there. The problem with the Queen Mary was, after the war was over, she was returned to her splendor, to her grandness. The paintings were replaced, the porthole covers literally fixed, so people could get fresh air and stuff like that. You know, staterooms, dining rooms, all the luxuries and all the amenities were brought back, and the Queen Mary sailed back and forth in all of her grandeur. But by the 1960s, a couple things had happened. One, Queen Mary was over 30 years old. And two, although with all the grandeur, jet aircraft could ferry people across the Atlantic far easier, far faster, far quicker than the Queen Mary ever could. She was saved from the scrapyard, thankfully. But does she deserve the reputation as the most haunted ship in the world? You let me know. Or better yet, ask somebody who's been aboard the Mary. Research it. Type in the Queen Mary haunted ship. There might be some ghost stories on there that I haven't even gotten to. I'm Mark Stise. Thanks for watching this video.